Have either of you heard of Liz Wiseman? She wrote the book Multipliers. I think that if you haven't, I just was in a seminar with Liz, and she talks about, as leaders being either multipliers or diminishers. And right in the middle of being a multiplier or a diminisher is where many, many people sit, where they're an accidental diminisher. They have all the best intentions. They're really trying really hard to make all these things happen properly. But, these little things that come up, like, the idea fountain was one of them. And I use that one because I'm an idea fountain. I have an idea a minute, and it drives my team absolutely crazy. They can't keep up with it. But I could see the same kinds of things happening inside of philanthropy, or inside of, not just in business, that somebody could be an accidental diminisher, and that, working on those things to help the next generation flourish and become all the things that they can be would be really helpful. Just side note for you that you might find interesting. When we talk about, the rising generation and family philanthropy, what would you say are some of the skills that the rising generation can learn, and why are they learning those skills? If you have an example of, where those skills are transferable, that would be wonderful. And Bruce, why don't you kick us off on the skill sets that are learned through family philanthropy?
Well, there's a very long list of skills that philanthropy can teach. A few of the top ones are how to behave in groups, right? You mentioned, Michael, the idea of setting ground rules. We do that with every family. Is we set ground rules for this new table, right? For the philanthropic table. How are we going to treat each other? How are we going to learn from each other? How are we going to disagree? How are we going to support each other? How are we going to thank each other? And there are many ground rules that families establish that then apply in other settings, right? Whether it's in the family business, or even when they move over to the dinner table, or in other family gatherings. I mean, one of my favorite ground rules that some families put in is no eye rolls, right? You're not allowed to roll your eye when your father or your brother or your mother says what they're going to say, and then you roll their eye, and then you're basically saying, I'm not even listening to you. It's a very dismissive, very disrespectful, very common reaction. I actually have that rule with my wife. We have a no eye roll rule, because both of us are great eye rollers. But if we eye roll, even in a marriage, right, let alone in a family philanthropic table or a business setting, you're basically saying to the other person what you just said doesn't matter. Right. So we start with a set of ground rules for behavior that then can be applied to other settings that are that help teach listening, help teach other important skills. Philanthropy can help the rising generation learn how to listen and how to disagree. Right? Disagreement is productive. Disagreement is exciting. Disagreement causes growth. But how you disagree is important. And so philanthropy, the philanthropic table, can be a place where you can learn how to disagree but still move forward, as opposed to get stuck. The philanthropy table can be a place where you can learn the skills of effective communication. You can learn how to trust other people to do their jobs, and then learn how to say thank you and how to acknowledge. Something that it's really hard for some people to do is to acknowledge the hard work that other people are doing. Think how valuable that is in a business setting, right? To be able to acknowledge the success and the hard work of your table mates, whether it's a business table or a philanthropy table. And ultimately, philanthropy is a place to learn leadership. And all of these skills that we're talking about, that Deborah has mentioned, that you have mentioned, that I have mentioned, all of these are about leadership. How do you be a good leader? You have to be an effective communicator. You have to learn how to listen. You have to learn how to collaborate. You have to learn how to disagree, right? You have to learn how to acknowledge. These are all leadership skills that can be taken from the philanthropic table and all the family philanthropy or business philanthropy and apply it to a business setting. So I'm a great believer in the use of philanthropy to build leadership among the rising generation, build better communication among the generations in a family, which ultimately help the family, help the business, and at the end of the day, helps the world. Because at the end of the day, we're putting money out the door to some very worthy or needy cause that is dependent upon philanthropy to do its great work.
Great, thank you. I'm thinking of an example that is, I have a family where we're working on the foundation right now, and it is 95% top down, and trying to figure out how to maneuver that to not be top down, because they have one grandchild. It's the only grandchild that they're going to have, and they are planning on having multi-millions in that, the family, it's a family foundation, and this one grandchild is expected to run it. She's 11. We have no idea whether she's going to have an interest or not have an interest, or whether, what her life is going to look like. And they involve her, but it's all grandma and grandpa tell her what to do. And this is really helpful for me. I'm trying to think about how do I frame that going forward in our July Family Foundation meeting. So thank you. Appreciate that. Deborah, when we talk about, the skill sets and, what you see people, what these rising generations are learning. You talked about an example earlier with the family that you were, serving, where you had young kids in there. What other things did you, see coming from, what else are they learning? What are the other skill sets that are coming out of there?
Well, Bruce started us off with a great list, and I would just add a few things. I think also, critical thinking skills are at play here. You're needing to analyze things. You're needing to do evaluation. You're needing to, make decisions, like Bruce said. I think also this is a great place to learn to take risks. A lot of philanthropy is about playing it safe, and yet there's a real opportunity here to take some risks and see if maybe it's going to pay off. Maybe there's an impact beyond your wildest dreams and vision for what you can do, because you really invest in something that's a different approach that's not being taken out there. So I think that's a great skill to work on. And then especially for these younger kids, since you brought them up, Michael, empathy is really at play here, and being able to put yourself in somebody else's shoes and feel like, what it might feel like for that person in the world. And I think that's a really important skill to build for, especially for younger kids, because that will only serve them as they go about their lives. And all of these together help each of these individuals, as part of a family, create their own philanthropic identity and how they want to show up in the world. And I think that's just something so powerful for these, especially younger kids, to be able to feel like they have a voice in this, and to learn to speak up for themselves, to learn to be able to, like Bruce said, effective communication, but to really get your point across, get your view across in a way that's, that's going to be heard.
Great.
I want to